14.2, Climate and Land Ecosystems. Climate is the average weather conditions based on long-term records. For each climate area, temperature is within a range each season. Okay, so it's not an exact number. And the average annual precipitation is within a certain range. So remember, precipitation isn't just rain, it could also be snow falling. 3 factors that determine our climate. The topography. This is an area's natural physical features. So things like lakes, rivers, mountains, valleys, how is the land shaped? A topographical map is one that shows the physical features of the land. Besides just showing landforms such as mountains and rivers, the map also shows the elevation changes of the land. Elevation is shown using contour lines. So we know that big bodies of water can have an effect on the climate of a region. Mountains, higher elevations might have a different effect. Valleys can trap in some weather. So here we see a topographical map, and you can see these little layers. So this is 200, I'm not sure what measurement that would be, like probably meters above sea level, and 100 meters above sea level. So you can see that we've created a bit of a hill here, that it is getting higher and higher. And you could count where you were, if you were like right here, how high above sea level you are with these lines. So we are 100, 110, 120 meters above sea level, or whatever if it was feet. So these can show how tall things are, where there's valleys, and it can help communicate what that area looks like better than just a flat map might. Another factor that determines climate is the altitude or elevation. Like we just said in the topographical map, it might be important to know this. Altitude is the height of an area above sea level. So we always measure height above sea level. So the beach in Victoria would be considered 0 meters above sea level. The altitude is an abiotic factor that affects plants and animals in the area. When there's a higher altitude, there's less diversity of plants and animals. So we can see here, there's a few different things that they're talking about in this pyramid, but we can see that the higher up we go, the fewer species we have. So a grassland, a forest, a boreal forest, which is more just coniferous or like pine trees, and then up to the tundra. So we see less and less diversity just in the plants as we gain altitude. Last factor that determines climate change is the latitude. Latitude is how far north or south you are from the equator. This is important because the amount of sun's energy and light you receive changes depending on your position. So, at the equator, the sun's rays are spread out over a narrow area, meaning that all of this energy is directed in one small spot. However, because of the tilt of the Earth at the north and the south poles, the sun's rays are spread over a wider area at the top and the bottom of the poles. Therefore, all of this energy goes to a larger space, being dispersed a little bit more. The equator is hot because it receives direct solar radiation, and its days and nights are consistent lengths all year. The north and south poles are colder because it receives less direct sunlight, more at an angle, and its days and nights change in length throughout the year. So we can see that the south pole is not actually receiving sun in this position. Okay, so this is where their days and nights, their nights would be almost completely 24 hours. Okay, so they don't see the sun. Whereas at this point, this is where in the north, it would be summer and the sun barely sets in the summer days. Mountains have an effect on our climate as well. Moist air from the Pacific Ocean rises up and over the British Columbia Mountains. So water from our west coast in our ocean evaporates and forms clouds. As these clouds travel across the mountains, it drops its moisture. It cools over the mountains because of their altitude and falls as snow. Therefore, when these clouds come over the mountains and back into Alberta, the grasslands get very little rain, okay, because it has dropped its precipitation over the mountains. As the air comes down the mountains, it warms up and we get a warmer climate than, of course, what we would have had in our mountains, and low precipitation. The further away you get from the mountains, the more precipitation you would start to get, and that's where we get large forests growing. So we're talking northeast Alberta, that is furthest away from our mountains. Okay, so if Alberta was something like this, of course, this area is where our mountain air is coming over with less precipitation, but up north, we don't have mountains. And so, well, I mean, they are in BC here, but we're getting more precipitation up here, and that's where those forests grow. Some practice on page 277, number 1, 2, and 3 for you.